So, Snow, what are your thoughts on Bernie Sanders?
Oh, Bernie. Back when I was buying his shtick, I was very supportive. We have some Bernies up here in Canada.
Yes.
I thought, yeah, this guy's really gonna get it done. But my take, and this was super unpopular at the time, because everybody I know was like a Bernie bro. And I will always respect Bernie for how he radicalized people, for how he made it permissible, I suppose, to want more of your government, to want a better future for your country. I'll always respect him for that. But at the time, I was like, yeah, Bernie says a lot of good stuff, but I don't know how he's going to get any of this done in the system that he's trying to operate in. Like he's fighting a rigged game, and I got a lot of flack for that. And much like yourself, I'm kind of enjoying his heel turn a little bit.
I think that's fair to say, because I had the audacity of hope in 2020, because I remember 2016, and I remember what happened in Philly. I saw what happened there, and I assumed that Bernie would be ready in 2020, that he would have a legal team, that he would have, a Praetorian guard to be on the move to handle corporate media and what the Democrats were going to throw at him. But instead, all that we got was a lackluster, mediocre version of what we saw in 2016. And, it came to the point, it was like, Jesus, Bernie, did you waste everybody's time? It got to the point to where I got enraged at seeing this man even speak. And Russell from Due Dissidence even brought this up, that, Bernie was never who he said he was. This is just all one big show. And there was a recent video that came out. This is a person from Prem Tacker and Motez. And now this is Prem sharing this video from a person named Motez Salim, who's lost 100 plus extended family members in Gaza. Now, a recent report has come out about the crisis in Gaza, that 186 people could potentially, maybe even more, 200,000, could potentially be dead because of the ongoing bombing, starvation, and overall lack of basic sanitation in Gaza right now. And that number is probably still rising up. And he goes on to ask Senator, why do you continue to say Israel has a right to defend itself when it's committing a genocide? It's not defense. They just bombed a school. They killed my own family. To which Bernie Sanders did not respond. Here is the video. It's only 30 seconds. I'm going to mute my mic.
Senator, why do you continue to say that Israel has a right to defend itself when it's committing a genocide? It's not defense. They're murdering Palestinians. They bombed a school just 24 hours ago. How can you keep saying that it has a right? It's on occupied land, the land of my ancestors. They killed my own family.
I want to leave that image up there. The door closes.
Yeah.
Maybe Bernie is never who he said he was. You know what, Russell? An off chance you're watching this from Due Dissidence. I don't know, Keenan, if you're watching this either. INN crew. But yeah, he never did care. The door closes. That's what Bernie Sanders did. Closing the door, but he did have time. He did have time to tweet this out also, because that video I played came out yesterday, but at 1:57 p.m., July 12th, 2024, which was a Friday, a fun Friday, right? He goes on to say this: we must not forget Gaza. Jesus Christ, Bernie. Now, I could read all of this, but again, it's all more of the same, because he also brings up the fact that, what happened on October 7th, which, by the way, more reports are coming out that Israel did know that something was going to happen on October 7th. Intel services were telling the Israeli military that something was going to happen, to which they ignored it. And one could argue that this was Netanyahu's wag the dog moment. But seeing that elevator close, I mean, Snow, what do you think?
Well, I've always seen an inherent contradiction within Bernie. Whereas he'll talk a good talk. he'll talk about Palestine. He'll talk about how strongly worded a letter he's going to write to Joe Biden about Gaza. But here's the thing, okay? The facts are the Biden administration is directly aiding Israel in facilitating the atrocities being committed to Palestinians. And he has the nerve to sit up here and go, oh, well, we have to support Joe. We got to support him. We gotta fight back Trump because I have terminal TDS. It's more important than the Palestinians. That's essentially what it is. So you can't really say these things are I'm against these things if you're also saying out of the other side of your mouth, but you have to support the administration and the president who's assisting the facilitation of these things. I'm sorry, just I argue against black and white thinking, but some issues like this are very black and white. You either oppose it fully or you support it fully. And your actions kind of mean a lot more than just your words. I think looking back, Bernie Sanders was a fantastic showman. And I think what he did was he galvanized a lot of people to the left of liberalism, of the Democrats, of the DNC establishment. He galvanized a lot of the left and he pulled them back into the Democrat apparatus. A sheepdog, if you will. A lot of us call him a sheepdog. RBN calls him a sheepdog. I think that's a really good way of describing him. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he doesn't even have the authenticity, if you will, to even reply to that person, to what they're saying, even offer like any kind of empathy whatsoever. Absolutely. That's a mask off moment. That's how you can tell these people, just like AOC, just like the rest of them, they're charlatans. And you know they're charlatans because the system that they claim to be against is the same system that is propping them up. They're benefiting from that system. That's why I had those criticisms back in the day. I said, well, how is he going to go? He's going to operate within the system that is stacked against him. And so, I mean, there you have it. Bernie, AOC, all of them on the easiest issue to be on the right side of history in a long time, which is Palestine. These people are dropping the ball, and they're supposed to be fighting for the everyman. Nah, sorry.
I find it. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Continue.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, y'all played us. Good job, you guys. You had me.
I have to carry that L too. I believed in Bernie Sanders. I believed in that message. 2016. I remember just waiting, hoping like Bernie would just say, F this, I'm up out of here. Let's form our own thing. Just like what everyone was asking Bernie Sanders to do, which he never did. 2020, he did it again. And it was, let's face it, there was in his campaign in 2016 and the one he did in 2020, night and day, two different things altogether. And then when he started calling Biden his good friend, it's like, then I was like, okay. All right. He's your opponent. You're supposed to defeat your opponent. You're supposed to destroy your opponent. That's what you're supposed to do. Yes. Are you supposed to make alliances and yes, get people to concede and fall out of the race so they support you? Yes, that's supposed to happen. But you need to show that you're a stronger person and said, he's my good friend. He could beat Trump too. Joe could beat Trump. Joe could beat Trump. Joe could do it. No, Bernie, you took people's hard-earned money and there he is. 30 seconds. We're just going to play it again one more time, folks. Just this is who he is when you confront him. And I have to now. I remember this quote from the Joker speaking to Harvey Dent. You know, I'm like a dog chasing cars. I wouldn't know what to do as one if I caught it. And Bernie and Trump to some extent in 2016 were those lightning in the bottle kind of moments, and they both were dogs chasing cars, and they both caught their cars in similar ways, each different. First of all, if we look back to the 2016 primary and even in the general election, I think it was assumed that Trump at one point was going to do his own Fox News adjacent media network. He wasn't expecting to become president. I think everyone thought that Hillary had it in the bag. That was one of those things like, okay, Trump, you won it. Okay, you're president now. And then there's Bernie, to where people were seriously saying F you to the Democratic Party, and everyone was fighting harder for Bernie's campaign than Bernie himself, because we were seeing in every single state, every single small town and city where there was election fraud happening and people were being denied ballot access or polling stations being shut down. People were raising the alarm. When the campaign was happening here in 2016 during the primary, Bill Clinton was showing up at polling stations, which you're not supposed to do. And nothing happened. Bernie didn't fight back. And that should have been a sign to us all that if you're fighting harder than the commander or the king is, then clearly you're wasting your time, because maybe Bernie was hoping for a way out, and here he is.
Senator, why do you continue to say that Israel has a right to defend itself when it's committing a genocide? It's not defense. They're murdering Palestinians. They bombed a school just 24 hours ago. How can you keep saying that it has a right? It's on occupied land, the land of my ancestors. They killed my own family.
And there's the elevator closing. That's Senator Bernie Sanders. And the real quick here, I'm seeing in the audience, when I say that Hillary Clinton had it back, that's what corporate media was presenting. And I think for a lot of people, they accepted it. When I left the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, I said to myself, and Daniel was with me at the time, there's 50-50 chance Donald Trump could pull this off, because I remember people being attacked, brutalized, being doxxed by Clinton people. Because I this was before we started Hard Lens. This was like the proto version of it. And, the delegates, the volunteers that we spoke to, the men and the women, their stories were the same. Them being threatened, being threatened to be doxxed, women being assaulted, harassed. And if I was in Bernie Sanders' shoes, and I know I get angry easily, if somebody was doing that to my people, I would be furious. I'd be like, screw this, we're up out of here. But he didn't do that. He didn't do that to people who wasted time, energy, and money. And this elevator closing, and I'm sorry if I had to play this video again, but this is who he is. And do you think he's going to tell Joe to drop out? There was a recent article coming out where Bernie said that Biden has to do better. Whatever credibility this man had, it says a lot. But also, hold on, let's have a humorous note here. Brandon Gilroy says, "I'm more shocked that the closed door button works." Well, that's Congress. When they got it, there's a special button to leave real fast in case an independent journalist or a progressive is there speaking to these jagoff politicians. There's the eject button real quick. I don't know. I want to kind of get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I think so I saw when he said that Israel has the right to defend itself. The part that angered me about that is to say something as absurd as Israel has a right to defend itself because of those actions. You have to observe the events of Hamas in October in a vacuum. You have to pretend that everything from the past 75 years didn't happen, that Israel's treatment of the Palestinians throughout history didn't happen. You have to regard this in a vacuum of like, this is a cause, this is an effect, and there's no factors that caused it. They just, I guess Hamas woke up and they're like, we're gonna attack some Jews today. I don't know. I just we rolled the dice. We got a 15, and for 15s it says attack Jews today. That's how you have to compartmentalize this, because the only other thing you can do is accept that there are reasons behind resistances such as Hamas. And Bernie knows this. He's old enough to know it. That's for sure. So when he says shit like that, it's like, okay, so everything this guy's saying when it comes to Palestine, all of the okey dokes that he's given everybody, they have no water behind them, because he's still treating this in the same lens that the corporate media is treating it, that the whole right-wing apparatus is treating it, insofar as, the October event happened, and we're just going to focus on that and then the timeline afterward. So this event happened, therefore that justifies everything they're doing after that. And when he's saying Israel has a right to defend itself, what he is essentially saying is the actions that followed that event are justified. And so it invalidates everything else he's saying, where it's like, oh, the Palestinians, they really need to, we really need to do something about the Palestinians. Shut the fuck up, Bernie. Okay? Shut up. I don't want to hear it. I'm tired of this. You're saying the same stuff. You're validating the atrocity that you're pretending to oppose. Okay, you can't have it both ways. You got to pick a side, my guy.
Right.
But that's Bernie. He can never pick a side. He's talking about all these progressive ideas that are extremely popular with the American public. But then he's supporting the corporate Democrat structure. He's working from within the corporate Democrat structure.
Right.
Bernie Sanders has always talked out of both sides of his mouth. The only difference was everybody was so hopeful, they were only looking at one side of his mouth.
I think as a final note, folks, what we could take away is, from 2016 and even before 2016, because I remember when Bernie Sanders, when TYT was, the only independent media network around at the time, kind of, Bernie would show up. He'd show up on a lot of places, but ever since then, ever since 2016, there's been this whole change. And the great revelation is that Bernie is just like any other politician, and it's all one big lie. And if he really did care, if he really was consistent, he would fight. Why stay in after so long unless you have something working for you? And maybe Bernie wasn't really expecting people to really consume his message. Maybe he wasn't expecting people for him to go further. And I think people need to come to terms that Bernie Sanders should never have been hero worshipped. And this serves as a lesson for all of us to never be fooled again by politicians, and that electoral politics isn't going to save us. We're going to have to save ourselves. And to avoid the pain of this image here of Bernie doing this, closing the door. There's him, door closed. Bernie, door closed, right there. Bernie, door closed. I'm not going to be playing again because, again, it's painful to hear because, listen, I have no idea what it's like to lose 100 plus family members, extended family members, people whose bodies may never be recovered. All of Gaza at this point, it could be argued as a moonscape. Men, women, and children are starving. We are seeing the images, and it's getting worse and worse. To which I have to say, folks, don't trust these politicians. They're not going to save the day. They never have. They never will. It's going to be up to us to fight for that better future. And we can never be fooled. And hopefully we learn this lesson so it never repeats itself again, because the next time there may not be a next time.
If you fool me once, it's because I didn't think a guard was needed. If you fool me twice, it's because I didn't learn the lesson, so it bears repeating. If you try the same play 3 times running, it's because you know what's coming, and you didn't come to lead, you came to purposefully be misleading. Democracy is dry. It's been a century bleeding. The husk is gaping open to the sky, out in the field where all the sheep just keep on circling and worrying and bleeding. They're waiting for the shepherd that they've tried to hide their faith in, but he's so appealing. They'd gladly give their fleece. It's such a freeing feeling that even when he leads them to the ledge and starts to urge them on, they're positively beaming. They were told that they were on their way to save democracy, so even as they plummet, they just gloat. They don't consider screaming. And halfway up the cliff, the shepherd's cozy little mittens wrap around the staff of shattered human hopes on which he's leaning. He shows the gentle grin that used to stir your inner spark, and he says, "Not me, us," as he gestures to the oligarchs. He knows that if he runs, they're going to stop him like a stolen car. And he'll easily surrender because it bought a lot of time for laying mines in all the grassroots. Suddenly, the tiniest of movements gets you blown apart. Suddenly, you're in a play that's set on an election day, and voting for the fire, unaware you're playing Joan of Arc. Suddenly, the shepherd pulls the rug and slips a hood across your clueless mug, and everything goes zero dark. I'm gonna warn you once more before it's 2024 and you fuck around and find out who your heroes are. To take a step back from the herd, and you'll learn that you can spot who all the shearers are. If you really want to know the product that they're selling, I can take you where the mirrors are. If you think your voice is finally ready, I can tell you where the lyrics are. I hid them in a box I had to bury neath the cobble when they carpet bombed the promenade and raided all the street bazaars. Now all we've got's the marketplace, and you're too broke to even bother asking what the options for your treatment are. Suddenly, the raw debris of homeless human dignity will find it has 100 teeth for every badge and sweeper's arm. Suddenly, they speak in solidarity and each is armed. Suddenly, the sheep can see the shepherd for his truest form and all pitch in at once to help him buy the farm. And now it's zero dark, and all is calm and peaceful save the distant wail of sirens that approach beside the flames of dawn. Suddenly, the carrot's just a string that's on a stick, and all your movements make you sick because the prize is gone. Now, we could go and flee into the forest low and meek, or we can exercise our right to feast and go and graze on Biden's lawn. Because he's been sowing seeds that seep a toxin out to sap a bit from each of us and keep on leaching decades after Biden's gone. So regardless who they summon out of hell to come and do the job, it will not feel like Biden's gone. But in that time of hopelessness, you cannot trust the shepherd when he once again comes asking you to humor him his siren song. And it's cute that you can innocently, honestly assume that's just a symptom of a system that was wired wrong, and not the standard feature, basic function, primary objective of a mass hypnosis firebomb. You don't need to know the words to cry along. Someday it'll hit you like an officer who pistol whipped their ride along. Broke his jaw and kept his job and kept it moving right along. That voting isn't red or blue or black or white or right or wrong. Voting's like a firing squad where you can choose the firearm. It's slow extinction by and large. It's Super Tuesday supercharged. It's all your futures, roots and all, just tossed out on a garbage barge. It's everybody dropping out to push the biggest oligarch. It's everybody voting fire, registered as Joan of Arc.